Alexis, thank you for doing this interview with me.
I'm so excited. Thank you for asking me.
Of course, of course. So we can start off. I usually ask everybody, who is this person? So who is Alexis today? In this moment.
Geez, I feel like that's like the existential question.
Yes.
Who am I? So, I'm a queer, Black, feminist, DC girl.
Okay.
I am like a movement builder, social justice activist. I'm an artist.
Yes.
It feels so weird to say that. I'm an artist. I feel in lots of ways I'm coming into my understanding of what it means to be a culture maker, a cultural worker, and I'm a partner, I'm a daughter, like I'm a godmommy,
Yay.
all those things.
Yeah. So when you said a culture maker, what is that?
Yeah. So I'm in the process of like thinking about like what it means to be a Black woman who is a descendant of captured and enslaved Africans in this country. Like I've always known that that's who I am. And I mean, I don't know, I'm just in this process of understanding and remembering like what the cultural ways and practices were of my ancestors that like made it possible for me to be here, right? Like what are those cultural components that helped them survive, and discovering all of those that are still alive in me in ways that I don't even notice and pay attention to, and then intentionally connecting to those and trying to like bring them forward and like use them as a way to figure out the solutions and the pathways to liberation and to like the life that they dreamed of for me and for descendants that come after me.
No, yeah, that's good. I never even heard that. Yeah, so that's really cool. That's really cool. So who was Alexis growing up, and how has she influenced who you are today?
Oh, okay. So Alexis growing up was I've come to understand that there's something associated with being a Gemini and like the kind of kid I was, right? So just like really inquisitive, like interested in a lot of things. Like I'm I love to learn something. As a kid, that looked like fickle, right? Like changing my mind. Like I would start this and then I'm not into that anymore, and I start that and then I'm not into that anymore or whatever. Yeah. So I would say that's a pattern that that like marks my life, and that's the kind of kid that I was. I was the kind of kid where if I decided I wanted to do something, once the decision was made, it was done. It was like in it full steam ahead, and that goes from like deciding that I wanted to play piano to deciding that I wanted to spend my senior year of high school on exchange in a foreign country, right? Like just like a decision. Like once I decided that that's what I wanted to do, all my energy went into making that happen.
That's good. I like how you said that though, because a lot of people can see that as fickle, right? Like having many interests or many passions, and then turn around. And I guess because a lot of people feel like they have to pick one thing that they in their mind it's a box, they kind of put other people in a box as well, which is kind of sad. But yeah, so when you were younger, did you have something that you wanted to be when you grew up, or did you, like, using air quotes, grow up?
Oh yeah. So I think with the littlest me that I can remember wanted to be a teacher. Okay. So like the ends of the school year was my favorite time of year because teachers would have all of those like materials in the classroom that they were getting rid of, and I would bring them home. And I know I'm dating myself when I say this, but they used to have attendance cards. Okay. And so it would be like this little green card, and it would have like a grid on there for like every single day of the school year. Yeah. And they would like mark your attendance on the attendance cards. I used to be so excited to get a stack of attendance cards for my make-believe students.
That's really cute.
So like I got chalkboards, different versions of chalkboards for like every Christmas, and I would like teach all my kids and like smack my bed with a yardstick. Like I just trying to get my dog's attention.
That's cute.
So the littlest me wanted to be a teacher. I was sure about that.
Yeah.
And then like an older me, like a middle school age me, wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And yeah, I ended up being a teacher at some point in time, but like law never happened. I remember I think it was like I shouldn't have taken constitutional law at 8:00 in the morning when I wasn't a morning person. Yeah. And I remember going to University of Maryland one day trying to make it to that 8 a.m. Constitutional law class. And I was like, never mind. Yeah. I remember that decision when I was like, I don't think that's the path that I'm gonna go down. So that's what I thought I would do.
What drew you to being a lawyer exactly? Like,
that's a good question. I haven't thought about this in years, but I actually think it's the same thing that draws me to social justice right now. That it was about like this is wrong. We need to make this right. Yeah. When I was in my early years of college, I had an internship at the AFL-CIO, and I worked in the civil rights department, right? And so my orientation to law was still about like
social
justice oriented. Yeah,
that makes sense.
It wasn't about like corporate law and things like that. None of that interests me.
Okay. Yeah. I always wondered because like when you said lawyer, I'm like, oh, lawyer. I never really, not that you could really peg people. I couldn't really peg you for a lawyer, like the whole, the generalized makeup of a lawyer anyway. Yeah. So do you think that, could you take us through your, how you got here professionally? Like, so what were your like careers and things like that?
Sure. So I started out as, I graduated undergrad and I started out as a high school Spanish teacher. So my path was that senior year of high school, I decided I wanted to live on exchange in Argentina, and I did. And so I came back, and so Spanish language and literature is what I studied in undergrad and in graduate school. And so right out of college, I was a high school teacher, and at some point I switched to elementary school, still teaching Spanish, and like just very early on, especially when I was teaching elementary school and had a lot more interactions with children's parents, there was stuff that started to, it was just like feeling familiar, I was recognizing the impact that systems of oppression was having on people's lives.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And there were things that felt really familiar to me as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I was like, you know what? I really didn't feel like I could have the impact that I felt like I was here in the world to make. Trying to make learning a foreign language relevant to people who had so many other things going on in their lives. And so I left the classroom and I started working as a bilingual advocate in a court-based domestic violence program, like supporting folks who needed civil protective orders, who were fleeing intimate partner violence. And from like that direct service work was meaningful and it was grounding, like in like understanding the impact that gender-based violence had, that racism had, that institutions had on particularly on like Black bodies and Black women's bodies where I was working. And I was just interested more in addressing the systems, right? Like, okay, like, yes, this is what is happening. It was important for me to be grounded in the lived experiences, my own lived experience and lived experience of other people. And then it became more important to me to like, how do we tackle the systems, right? How do we how do I understand what is happening systemically? How do I help others understand what's happening systemically? And then how can we like disrupt the systems that are constructed to privilege some people and harm others? And so I started to work in state domestic and sexual violence coalitions, where I was able to do some of that, like really begin to do some of that anti-oppression work. And I felt really drawn to like the movement aspects of it, right? Like, yes, how do we dismantle these systems? And like just work hard in mainstream nonprofit organizations in order to do that. And then around 2015, I got the opportunity to participate in a leadership development program for leaders who were in the anti-violence movement called Move to End Violence. And it was a place that I had been looking for, like in the mainstream work, looking for other people who like remembered the roots of the anti-violence movement, right? Remember like the work of, queer Black feminists and like the beginnings at the DC Rape Crisis Center as the first rape crisis center in the country, and like people who were just really steeped in an anti-oppression, anti-racist, anti-capitalist approach to to social justice and to transformation. And the leaders in that program were asking the question of like, how do we get back to that? Like, how do we get back to movement building? How do we, our, VAWA has been important. The Violence Against Women Act was really important in, creating funding streams and creating, the ability to, build some systems and build some structures and to respond to the violence. But it also developed inherently tied to the criminal legal system that was like so inherently harmful to our people. And so it's like, okay, so being able to respond to survivors who needed response went hand in hand with like over criminalizing our communities. And so just really was interested in working with folks who were like, we've got to be able to see and vision beyond this and figure out where the movement is going to go from there. And that program led me to where I am now. I helped to lead a network of folks who, some are alumni of that program, and then others are folks who are involved in movement because that has been their paid work for a long time, or because they are people who, just because of this political moment that we're in, are like, like something has got to change, like we have to do something. And we organize around an orientation towards what we're for. And so we stay grounded in a clear understanding of like what exists that is harmful to us, that needs to be dismantled, but also and like very importantly with an eye towards but once we take apart harmful systems, what are we going to replace it with that is going to allow all of us to thrive? Because the habits of these harmful systems are so deeply ingrained in all of us that if we don't intentionally spend time envisioning and practicing something else, we'll just recreate the same thing because it's just in us, right? We have internalized all of this so much. And so so the work that I do now with Resonance Network is about like engaging people's imaginations, envisioning the world that we want, and like just taking risks in communities right now to like build it. Like let's create it. Let's make it right now. Like we want to do something different. How do we do it right now with the people that we're in community with? How do we be together right now? How do we be together right now differently in a staff meeting? Right? How do we make this staff meeting anti-capitalist? Like how do we make this, every single thing that we're doing, trying to explore that, and then trying to connect people across the country who we know are living in communities where we're practicing alternative ways of being together, so that we can learn from each other and be connected, so that like we can collectively act as a critical mass to shift, to shift communities, to shift how we govern ourselves, to shift the governments and the institutions.
Yeah. Okay. You can't just end it like, that's it. No, that's really good. And it seems to be, like, not on brand, but like who you were as a child. You know what I'm saying? Like even that, like I've decided like this is what it is. We're gonna go get it. Okay, it's the same kind of, I guess, like an adult form, right? Like would you say that? Like
I think so. That's so. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I think so. I think one thing that I can say is that has been been consistent for me is that like when I can get clear, if I can get clear on it, it's as good as done. Right? Yeah. And so this practice of like getting clear on like, oh, actually what is the world that I want to live in? What does that look like? Yeah. It's like once I can get clarity on it, it's like, okay, I can move towards it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I can act on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So earlier you not struggled, but it was a lot for you to say that you're an artist.
I know what word you're going back to.
Why is that? Why is that hard for you to call yourself an artist?
It's less hard now because I've committed to saying it out loud over and over again. And I think the reason I struggle with saying that I'm an artist is because like capitalism has taught us that like an artist is a certain thing, right? Yeah. And that you have a certain pedigree and you have a certain background and you have, you know what I'm saying? And it like separates fine art from other kind of art and all of this, you know? And so it's like within that kind of system that I'm like, okay, well, those are the real artists. And then I just make art, you know? So, and I'm like working to interrupt that. And and at the same time, I don't want to like devalue the work of people who have like studied and like dedicated like years and years, you know, to their craft. And I mean, I'm somebody who has dedicated years and years to what I do because it's been my practice, not because it's been something that I've like invested in institutionally studying. And so not a professional artist by any stretch of the imagination. I've always been a writer. I've always been a poet, like from like the first notebook I can remember having, right? Yeah. I think I remember my first, air quotes, published poetry. But my first published poem is probably in a dresser drawer in my mom's room. It was like maybe fourth grade or something. Yeah. There was one of the assignment in my classroom was to like write a poem for a classroom poetry book. Aww. And I remembered like mine was like one of the star poems. Nice. It was about a line soccer match. Do you remember line soccer? No. Line soccer was something that you only played in gym in the city, I suppose. Okay. But it was like there was a soccer ball and the two teams like lined up on each side of the gym. And so like the goal was like the line. Okay. Like you were trying to like you would run to the middle, two kids would face off and they would try to kick the ball through like that sounds the other whatever. So there was something I don't even remember the subject matter. I mean, I know that's the subject matter, but I don't remember like what the like heart of the poem was, but I do remember that I drew a soccer ball and like I wrote this poem. So very early on in fourth grade, like this combination between poetry and visual art like showed up in my life and I only remember that in retrospect. Yeah. So poetry was how I processed the trauma in my life. Poetry was how I like processed my emotions, and for years and years and years it only existed in my like in my journals and in my diaries. And like as I began to like read more poetry and like you know understand poetry, study poetry in school and things like that, then I started like putting it out in the world. So it'll be on, you know, I'll put something on a blog or I, you know, submit something here or there. And I got to a point in like just, you know, like just processing stuff that we process like therapeutically or otherwise, where I felt like words were failing me and I needed some other way to like move through some emotions that I was trying to process. And I just went to the art store. This is the thing, get clear, just do it, right? So I was just like, I need to try paint, right? Like, no, never painted. Don't even remember painting in art class or anything, right? But went to the art store and I was just like, I'm just going to buy everything I need. What do I need? I need some paint. I need some this. I need some that. I need the other or whatever. And, came home and that's how I started painting. And I actually haven't stopped painting since then. So it was many years before I actually took a class. And, and I've been painting ever since.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So in your mind, what makes an artist? Like, because you said before, I know you mentioned people studying. There's something else you said though, but I wanted to ask you, in your mind, what determines if someone can call themselves an artist or not?
Well, now, I think it's just that's how if you conceive yourself to be that way, then you're an artist, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, do you make art?
That's good. Yeah.
Do you make art?
Yeah.
You're an artist.
The end.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Whether you make it for yourself, whether you make it for your kindergarten classroom, whether you make it for...
Exactly. Yeah.
Galleries.
Yeah.
Right. Do you make art?
Yeah.
You're an artist.
The end. Yeah. Because I think, you know, I feel like some people feel like if you're not making money from your art, then you can't really call yourself an artist. But there's this thing about making art just for the sake of making art, right? Like how you were talking about, you can use it to process things, or just because it feels good. You know what I mean? And a lot of people miss out on the joy that it can bring, or bring somebody else. Even if you know, if you never share it, I'm all for just like doing it for the sake of doing it and following those like urges. Like, maybe I could try this. It's like, no, it's silly. I have this theory that, you know, that's why I was asking about your childhood, because I have this theory as a child, there's a lot of things we can learn from children because they're so open, they're so free. Like, you go into a classroom and everyone's like, I'm an artist, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a scientist, I'm a whatever. And it's like, what makes a person a scientist? You know what I mean? Is it going through the scientific method? Is it, you know, being curious and following? I feel like if we give that same credit to those people, even the scientists and philosophers of like the past, some of them didn't study anything. You know what I mean? They just did it, and because of what they did, that's who they were. I wish more people would, and I'm ranting, but I wish they would embrace their artistic side. Not that it has to be like Picasso or whoever. You know what I'm saying? It's their own.
When you talk about like those scientists who didn't study anything, and they followed something, right? Yeah. And it was that process of like, okay, you followed an inspiration, and this is where it led you to, right? Yeah. It led you to this invention, it led you to this like discovery of this like principle. It like led you. It's like you followed inspiration, and you wrapped that in matter, and like, here is this thing, and like that's what I think art is about. I went through. So I don't know who your audience is, but I'm about to tell you all about my womb space. So I went to this healer who does yoni steams, right? Okay, so like this vaginal steam healing modality. And when her name is Munira, and shout out to this like wonderful healing artist. And the one of the first things she said to me, because I was processing, like I wanted to go and just like process being postmenopausal, right? And like actually like marking like this transition in life of like no longer menstruating. And one of the first things she said to me is that she's like, your womb space is not just to create children. Yeah. Like, people who have wombs, like that womb space is like the center of creativity. It is the place where spirit gets wrapped in flesh. And that is not just about making human beings. I was like, wait a minute! Yes! Yeah. And so when I think about, making art, like, even if it's like making a meal in the kitchen, it's like when that inspiration gets wrapped in matter, and like, here is the thing, right? And so like that's what making art is about to me. It's like taking something, it's like, it's feeling that, like, there's and I think you and I have talked about this before. Like, there has definitely been times where it's just the practice of it, right? Like, I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, I'm gonna practice drawing these tomatoes, right? I'm like, this is a practice of do I really see, like, of seeing what I see and not seeing what I think I see, right? So like, yes, I'm gonna do this exercise to do it. And there are times when it's like, no, I'm going to make back fat visible and beautiful. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to paint this picture of these rolls on this woman's back because I'm going to make this fat black femme body visible to the world, right? So like, there's this moment when it's like, oh no, I feel like inspired to do this thing, and I'm going to do it. I have to do it. It's like these quilts, right? These quilts on this like right now, the project that I'm working on, I'm hand painting some quilts that were created by enslaved people onto greeting cards, right? And for me, it's like, number one, I've made a commitment because I create art and then it's just like I just hang it all over any empty space in my house, right? I don't like put it out in the world in any way. And so because of you, actually, very specifically because of you, like just encouraging me and like modeling how to just go out there and just like show my work. I've made the decision that I'm going to create art that I don't hold on to. And the way to do that is like I'm hand painting greeting cards. And like that's like I want to give those to people and put them out in the world. And I've been really inspired lately about like cultural work. Like what is the cultural, like what are the like I feel like right now I'm like harvesting the cultural brilliance of my ancestors. And I was just really inspired by these quilting, these books on like how quilts were used to like to give instructions on the Underground Railroad and like just these artifacts that like enslaved people like created this beautiful, brilliant art that they didn't get to enjoy, right? Like create this beautiful, brilliant art for other people. And like part of my like living my ancestors' wildest dreams is I'm like recreating these images and for our people to enjoy, right? And so right now I'm hand painting some of these quilts on greeting cards. And to me, this is inspiration wrapped in matter, right? It's like I take the you know, let me borrow a little bit from my my AME Christian Black ancestors, and the word became flesh, and and like that's what I feel like is happening, right? In the art creation, it's just like inspiration wrapped in matter. Word became flesh, you know. Like that's kind of what's happening in this art making process.
No, that's good. This is amazing. I love everything you just said about just everything you just said. I was like blowing me. I was like, dang, like yes, like really thinking about how you're saying like our ancestors didn't have a chance to enjoy. But they were brilliant.
Yes. They were brilliant and made incredible things. I mean, I want to weep going through these books because it's kind of intense to look at the masterful craftsmanship and the conditions under which those things were created and that they didn't get to enjoy
at all
what they were created. In fact, were brutalized, you know, in the creation of it. But
what's amazing is even like how their art lasted. Like even though it was used to benefit other people, it's almost like joke's on you because these quilts mean X, Y, and Z, you know? Like you know what I'm saying?
And so I'm sewing my way up out of here.
Exactly. I think that's beautiful.
Yes.
So you touched on being postmenopausal?
Yes.
Okay. You touched on being postmenopausal. And I think for a lot of people, society is wrapped up in age and like youthfulness and being, you know, staying as young as you possibly can. And even for a lot of people my age, like talking about the quarter life crisis, like who am I? What am I doing? I'm not really putting anything into life. Like what is the meaning of my life? How do you, and because of that, talking about like artistry, some people feel like they're too old to learn. They're too old to like, and it's silly, right? It's silly. It is. But I think a lot of people get stuck in this mindset that if you haven't, like, hit it by, like, 25 or, like, I don't know, 30 even, then, like, oh, you know, the space you're making, I wish people could see the space.
I wish you could see it. So here's what I'm going to say about a quarter life crisis. Like, let's just start there. So your brain isn't fully developed until you're 24 years old, right? Like you can't even claim, like human beings cannot even claim being fully adult until their prefrontal cortex is completely developed, and that's not until 24. So you didn't even have a full brain until 24. So how in the world people think at 24 they are going to be like manifesting what they are in this world to do and all of that is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Like, we have a whole entire life. We have a whole entire life, and guess what? That means we have decades to change our minds. We have like, I mean, like, it is the journey, right? It is the journey, is to like figure out what we're here for, like what our purpose is, and to do it. And part of the purpose is the figuring it out, right? And so, like, so holding on to youth, I like, something happened at 40, like, so I'm 46. At 45, I kind of got a taste that something was definitely changing in my life. Like, I certainly felt like the orientation of my life was shifting from the first half to the last half. Right? And so, like, so thinking about legacy did not come with, like, regret and, like, all these things. It came with an assessment of, okay, so this is the sum total of my experiences. They weren't mistakes. It was not wasted time. Like, this is pointing the way towards my path, right? And like what I'm here for. And so I like, the first 45 years was like learning about like just who I am in this point in time as a person, right? So what it means to be a fat, black, queer, single woman, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of those things in America, like at this particular point in time, what it has meant for my people to survive in order to be here. The fact that I'm here at this time, like in this body, what it means for my family and for people I love to have endured the traumas that they have that they have endured. Like, all of that is not coincidental, right? Like, all of that lays out a path for like what I'm here for. And so in the second half of my life, I feel really, really clear that my work is to heal the wounds of my ancestors and to create fertile ground for descendants. And I know that those descendants won't be my biological descendants, right? I won't biologically have children, but there are like descendants in my family. There are like the people who will live after me. Like, I'm actively thinking about every day, like, what is it, like, what's the work of healing myself, right? What is it in me that needs to be healed so that I can be the person who can create this world, right? How, so that I can be in the world, so that we can't have a transformed world without transformed people, right? And so, like, my orientation is towards how am I transforming? How am I becoming more and more of the kind of person that I want to leave this world to, right? And so I don't, like, youth to me is not, I mean, I'm not hankering to hold on to youth, right? Like, I'm like hastening my elder self. I'm like, yes, like, wait, I'm like, gray hair, come in. I'm like, I want it. Like, I'm like, I'm like hastening that. Not because, I mean, there's a particular kind of elder I want to be, right? I want to be fly. I want to still be I want to still be limber. I want to be like all those things. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to like move around, do things I want to do in the world. And there's a role in the world for elders, and I want to be that, right? I want to, like, and there's, like, some people get to their elder years and can't step into their role of elder because they haven't healed enough. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't want to be that elder. I want to be an elder. I don't want to just be an old person, right? I don't want to just be a senior citizen. I want to be an elder. I want to have something to contribute. I want to have wisdom because I've done the work, right? To like, to heal and to like be creative and to like be supportive of other people's dreams, right? I don't want to be a crotchety old woman who's like talking about people and causing harm and all that stuff, whatever, because God knows I have endured enough of that, right? We all have them in our families, in our churches, in our communities. Like, we all have that. Like, I don't want to be that. And like, my work in my 40s is about, okay, so then, like, what else do I need to heal so that I cannot be that, and so that I can be an asset to my community as an elder.
That's good. That's a really good perspective to have, I think, because, you know, even though, okay, society glorifies youth and almost idolizes it, it's silly, because when you're young, you do dumb things, you do very, you know, just immature things, you know, and there is beauty to growing older that people, I feel like, have lost. Like, you know, even like you read about, like, gray hair being, like, in my mind, I see royalty. Like, whenever I see, like, you know, like, you've been here, you know things. Like, I want to glean everything I can from you. I want to, you know, but I feel like society has an issue with throwing older people out or throwing them away or making them feel that way. And people internalize that. And I don't think we were ever meant to live by that standard. Because, you know, in real life, it's like, okay, this is how many years you've been on Earth. You know, like, that doesn't stop your creativity. It doesn't stop your dreaming, your ambitions, none of that. But people feel like I've heard this too often from people who are older than me, but even my age, you know, be like, oh, I'm too old for that. I want to, we were joking last time we were here at the party, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a dancer, you know, on HBCUs when they have those, like, dancers and the band and stuff. I was like, I want to do that. And I really do. I want to learn how to dance. And so they were joking and saying, oh, you're too old for that. Or maybe if you started 15 years ago. And in my mind, I'm like, but why? Why can't I start now? Yeah, right. I'm almost 30. Why can't I start right now? Like,
yo, this is what, like, blows my mind when I think about Toni Morrison.
Yes.
Wrote her first novel when she was 40.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, too late for what?
Yeah, for who? Like
it's
never
so
silly.
Like, why?
As long as you have breath in your body, it's never too late. There was a woman, she's in her 90s, and she just started painting. And, like, so they had a whole, I don't know where it was. It was, like, on public television. I saw it. But they had a whole, like, segment on her because her art was so great. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, moving. And I think that for some things, you need life experience in order to really create the thing that really moves people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, it's not going to happen when you're 20 something. It's not going to be 30, 40. Sometimes you need to be old. It can, absolutely. But, like, for some people, it's just going to happen when you're older. You know, even for me with the music thing, like, I'm just starting, and again, that's a whole thing, like, oh, you should have started, you know, 10 years ago. I'm not going to mourn the time that passed because I needed that time was dedicated to other things. I need to know who I was first in order to create music that was authentic and really real, and, like, to have the stories that I can tell. And I think for some people, for me, it's really hard not to internalize that and be like, dang, I am too old to pursue it, or I'm too old, I'm not as sexy as such and such, or whatever. Because, you know, when you get older, your body just does different things, you know what I'm saying? And that's fine. But I think I've just got to the point over my quarter life crisis where I'm like, are you really not going to create anything because you think you're too old to? Or, like, that's so silly, and it's so selfish.
And it's so capitalist.
Yeah.
Right? Like, capitalism teaches us that we're only valuable to the point that we can produce.
Yeah.
Right? So to the degree that we can produce something that is marketable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, no.
Yeah.
No. Right? Like, my value is not in, like, what I can produce to be sold.
Yeah.
Like, that is not
and
what
for
my value is in.
Some people need to create. I just feel like I have a need to create, period, right? Yeah. Like, if I don't, I feel like I would die. Right. Because and I don't say that to be dramatic. I'm being very serious. Like, I feel like something in me would die. Like, I feel like I would keep living, but I wouldn't be my full self. And for some other people who are stopping themselves from creating or attaching their worth to what they create, it's like you can see the pain of them not creating. You know, like, and that pain can turn into bitterness, into a person being mean, or like what you're saying, like crotchety and things like that. Like, it's so, to me, it's mind-boggling, but not really. Like, it's mind-boggling how much we stop ourselves. Like, who says you can't? Like, if somebody wants to model when they're 75, why not?
Why not?
Go get a photographer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
get it.
What? Are you kidding me?
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm sorry. That just really moved me when you were talking about that. Like, dang, I didn't even think about that being capitalist. Like, I am, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, what's marketable.
I am what I can produce. Like, my value is tied into what I can produce.
Wow. And I feel like sometimes that taints art. Yeah, like if you're trying so hard to make something marketable, it's not going to be true. It's not going to be authentic, and then it's not going to resonate with who it needs to resonate with.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, like, I'm not someone who, I try to stay engaged in my artistic practice in the work I do, but I wouldn't say that I'm somebody who intentionally creates art for movement, right? Yeah. There are people who intentionally create art for movement. Yeah. And in conversations with artists who are doing that, there's always this tug between, like, I just want to create for me versus I want to create because I'm being paid to produce this thing, right? Like, even in your response, it's just like you can see it's just like, yes, I want to do this, and it's like the life, the energy is just very different when it's I'm making it because this thing needs to exist in the world. Like,
it's like, why can't that be enough?
It's just because it needs to exist. Yeah. That's it.
Boom. Walk away. Just
done.
I'm done. Yes.
It's here.
Yes.
There you go. You were born into the world. Do your thing.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Even if your thing is sitting up under that paperweight on the corner of my desk for a year.
Hey, that's real. That's real. Yes. So sorry.
And making me smile every morning.
Yes.
Right? If that's the only reason why this exists.
And that can be enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to talk about you and your art and your creativity.
Yes.
So how did you like begin painting? I know that you said, like, one day you just like, okay, I need to express. Words won't give me what I need, or words won't express what I need to express. So how do you feel like painting has done that for you? Like,
it's such a good question. So, so I started painting. I can't even remember what my first paintings were. All I remember is that they were terrible. They're probably in a box in that closet somewhere. They were just horrible. Mm-hmm. And then one day I went to but it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. Like, I needed to be, there was something that, oh my gosh, like, this is actually really touching me deeply in a way that I didn't expect right now. Because I don't think I've ever been asked this question. Mm-hmm. There was something about, there was something that was in me that I was feeling, and it just needed to come out of my body, right? And so, like, the act of, like, putting paint on a brush and putting it onto a canvas, it was just, like, it was just coming out of my body. And the fact that it was just, like, this lopsided owl, this, like, crazy looking and all this, like, none of that stuff really mattered. It was just, it was like me seeing that, number one, that I can do something and that it doesn't have to be perfect the first time I do it. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. That, like, oh, I can actually paint over this. I can actually paint this whole canvas black and just, like, start all over. Or I can just get another canvas, or I can just paint on paper, or I can just paint something and, like, throw it away and it can never, just, like, I could do these things, but there was something very particular about me being able to witness myself improving, right? Like, to have this visible marker of my growth, was important and transformative to me, and it just spoke to other parts of my life. It's just like, no, this is how you get better. You keep coming back to it. You keep trying or whatever. And I think so I was the kind of student where things came easily to me, and so I didn't like, in the classroom wasn't the place where I had to apply rigor. Right. You know what I'm saying? Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't have to practice. And then when I tried to, like, play instruments and I just couldn't do it, I just didn't do it. Yeah, I was like, all right. Like, so, like, I never, and nobody was with me saying, no, stay with it. Right. Like, keep practicing, keep practicing, right? So I never learned how to hone, like, a particular craft. Yeah. It's like, I found the things that I was good at, and I just did the things that I was good at, right? Yeah. And so I was not good at painting when I first started painting. And then one day I went to these, like, Living Social had this, like, paint and sip thing. It was before everybody and their mama was doing a paint and sip thing. It was like with it, like, there was an artist there, and rather than, like, trying to copy this painting, each easel had, like, a photograph, like, on the easel or whatever. And I was looking at it, mine was a chicken. I don't paint no damn chicken. Sorry.
No, it's fine. You're fine.
I was like, I don't paint a chicken. And so I started painting this chicken. And it was amazing. and it had depth, and it had like layers, and it had shadows, and it had, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I went up to the artist afterwards, and I was like, I have a question. I was like, do you always paint with a reference photo?
Yeah.
And she looked at me, she was like, the percentage of artists who can paint something with this much detail out of their heads is very, very small, or somebody who has been like really, really well practiced. Yeah. And she taught me about, she's like, I actually collect reference photos. It's why I've got like stacks of magazines and like, she was like, she told me, she's like, carry around a sketchbook. When you see a tree, it's like, look at a real tree, sketch the shape of a real tree so that when you come and you try to paint a tree out of your head, you're painting what you think a tree looks like. Right. As opposed to painting what an actual tree looks like, right? Yeah. And so for me, painting became a practice in seeing things as they are, not as I want them to be. Yeah. And that was not just about art.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's about art.
I'm ready to hear more. Not just about art. Yeah. That was about like acknowledging like what is like, am I trying to make this relationship something that it's not? Am I trying to see something in here like what happened if I just saw it for what it was and like didn't judge it as good and bad or pretty or not pretty or what like what does it open up in me if I can just like be in relationship with people and just like be with them and this is who they are and that's it, and there's no judgment about that. And how can I so painting for me has been an exercise in like being present and being mindful and like seeing things for what they are and not like projecting all my stuff onto things. And then I actually painted something and I was like, oh my God, I like that. Yeah. Like, oh my God, that's kind of beautiful. And then I fell in love with painting Black women, and I fell in love with painting body parts. And I have all these paintings around my house of like my different body parts. I have my left breast over here. I have like downstairs, like have my eye. Like I started like just getting a little part of a whole and like focusing on the detail of that, right?
That's good, yeah.
And that was about practice, but it was also about like me accepting myself and accepting my body. So that's like beautiful. A lot of my self-portraits, like a lot of the art where I've used myself as a reference image has been about seeing myself for who I am and not for who I want to be and not trying,
it's okay.
Not trying to paint myself skinnier or not trying to paint myself with less freckles or not trying to paint myself without the wrinkle. Yeah. It's like, no, like what is what is perfect. Yeah. And so like making that like visible in the world for myself and like evaluating like when it, like if I'm painting someone else, like, you know, if I'm trying to slim someone else down in something else that I'm saying, then like, then this, like, I need to interrogate my own fat phobia, right? Yeah. Like, what is it that makes me think that this person can't exist in the world as they exactly as they are, that I have to like change them or improve them somehow, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so, so art making has been about my, just like that, like my own like transformation and interrogation of like, oh, what is beautiful? Yeah. Right? Yeah. What is beautiful? And what have I internalized from like messed up, harmful systems about what is beautiful in comparison to like, no, like this is beautiful because it's beautiful just like it is.
Because it is. Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good. Yeah. So, more about your art. So as you talked about before, you're starting to put your art on greeting cards, and you were saying that you're using. I'll let you explain it. So the greeting cards. How did that idea come about? Like to.
I think it just came up in a dream. I don't remember. I remember you and I were in a conversation about putting my work out there, and like you photographed some of my work, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with that? And I just think in a dream, it was like, oh, if I put it on greeting cards, and at the time I was actually thinking about printing greeting cards with, photographs of like some of my canvas painting or something like that. That's actually what I had in mind. And then I was like, that's still me holding on to something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like still me having attachment. I still have the original. It's just, this is a print out there.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm going to actually try just like painting. Like directly on to the cards, like hand painting the cards and putting them out there in the world. And that's a practice of non-attachment, right? Like, I'm not gonna, because on some level, holding on to a piece of art for me is about like holding on to the opportunity to improve it.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like as long as I still have it, I can still make it better. I can still make it something else, right?
Yeah.
And so letting things go and like be out in the world and like having an internal sense of like when it's complete, okay, that's what it is. It's complete and it's out in the world. Yeah. And I have no attachment to it, right? If somebody else loves it and they decide that they want to like frame it and keep it, or if they pitch it and they throw it out and it just made them happy for the moment that they got it.
Sure. Yeah.
Having no attachment to that. Yeah. Just wanting to create. And if I never buy greeting cards anymore, then this is gonna be me producing more art than I have ever produced. You know what I mean? It's like if I think about all the times I give cards, like this actually will make me like produce art more and more and more. It's like, oh, you like be creative. And then it makes me think about like I think about a person a whole lot more if I'm gonna like decide what image to paint on a greeting card for them than I would when I'm standing in an aisle, like being really mad because this card cost $7 and they don't even say what I wanted to say. You know?
That is so real. That is so real. I like that idea of letting it go, like giving it away. Because I am someone I struggle with perfectionism, and I think with art, because it's subjective, but in your mind you have an idea of what you want it to look like and versus where you are right now, and they say that art is never really finished. It's just like you just stop, right? Like, okay, I'm done, because you can always tweak and add little things or take away or whatever. And I find even with like photography, like sometimes I'm just like, no, like I almost fell into the idea of like photoshopping bodies and things like that. And while it is a good like money source, it didn't really align with who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want real, authentic. Like, if you have freckles, you have freckles. Right. You know what I'm saying? If you have stretch marks, you have stretch marks. You know what I'm saying? I have them. Like, it's fine. Like, it's, and I wanted to do that, too, to, like, show people, like, you are beautiful. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to look like somebody first, they're not real. These people in magazines, aren't real. And if they are, okay, so be it. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted people to one, love themselves, but also I didn't want to determine, like, I didn't want to be like, okay, well, you should, because that's weird. To me, that's weird. Like, I'm not playing God. I'm not, shaping your body. You are who you are, and that's fine. Right. In this moment. Right. But I think, the idea of, like, giving it away, I think is really beautiful. I do. Because it's really hard for me to give things away, especially, like, when you create it. Because you attach yourself to something, and it's really not you. Like, it's something you made. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's healthy to have a healthy relationship with your art, because like you were saying, if you're creating art for the sake of creating, like you said, then it should be easy to just be like, okay, well, yeah, here you go, whatever. Not saying that your art doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't mean anything about you. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So the attachment piece, like as this particular card that I'm working on, like I really like it. Yeah. Right? It's like, oh man, I like that image. Yeah. And I think what can happen is like I can get attached to this particular version that I created, and I think behind letting it go is to me like some doubt about like, am I an imposter? Like that was a fluke, right? Yes. Like if it was something that was good, or that I looked at and I judged it as good, then I'm like, that's a fluke. I can't do it again.
Wow.
And since I can't do it again, I need to hold on to it.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's something about this that's like, no, I'm going to put it out in the world because I can do this again.
Yes.
Like, I made that. I can make this. Like, what in the world makes me think that I can't? Like, and so I'm constantly interrupting my delusion that I'm an imposter.
Yeah.
And it is a delusion.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not an imposter. Like, you're an artist and you're getting better and you're like trying new techniques and you like, you'll get better. Can I be better? Yeah. I can be a lot better.
Yeah.
And I got some more breaths in my body. So that means I'm supposed to get better.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. And that's good.
Yeah. And I'll get the more I practice, the better I'll get.
Yeah.
And so
did you ever struggle with like, I guess, perfectionism or like, I don't know, did you?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So I think perfectionism is like a delusion of white supremacy, right? I think it's one of the habits of white supremacy is the notion that there is there's this thing called perfect, right? And that there's certain people who are closer to it than others, right? And so the constantly like wanting to like change it and wanting to like fix it and that's not good enough or whatever. I definitely think that is a manifestation of perfection. But more than perfectionism, like I am always astonished when I do something and I think it's good. So what I have more is like the shadow side of perfection, right? Yeah. It's like the delusion that I'm crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I have this like strong belief that you don't know what you're doing. Like one day it's just going to be gone. Like you're just not going to be able to like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like one day you're just not going to be able to produce it. Like somebody is going to look at that and be like, what is this trash?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it could very well be that people look at this stuff and say, what is this trash? And let me tell you something. I have been in many art gallery and thought, what is this trash?
Same. I'd be like,
what?
I don't get it.
I didn't get in here.
I know.
Like, I'm not going to, there's a certain artist, I ain't going to name no names, but people are paying like millions of dollars for his work. And I'm like, yo, that looks like something he doodled on the back of an envelope. Like, what is going on?
No. And all times, and
yay! And yay!
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, and yay, because it's like, yes, this is a particular aesthetic, and people value it, and so it's speaking to something in somebody, and to someone, and I'm just like, well, shoot, I need to put my doodles out in the world.
Why not, right? Why not? So there were 2 art pieces you wanted to talk about. Were there not? The paintings?
Which ones?
The right here. Behind you. No.
Oh, yes, these 2. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's all good. I was like, maybe I heard that wrong. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So tell me about it. I'm going to take some pictures while you're talking about it. I'm listening.
Okay, so this painting, so this, Alicia, this came like right after you and I had the conversation about like showing my work, right?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to this this retreat that my job was sponsoring, and it's called the Spiritual Midwives Retreat. And so what we were thinking about was like, what does it look like for us to hold intentional space for spirit to show up in movement spaces, right? Like, how do we not like keep politics and spirit separate? Like how can we like bring all of that together? Yeah. And so I'd had a dream about my elder self. Okay. Right? Yes. And like my elder self is like like connected to land and like growing like medicine and like knows what to do. Like I've like studied and learned like the different medicines that like our ancestors used to like heal themselves and things like that or whatever. So that's like the vision that I have of my elder self. And it was this particular like vision that I had. And it was me in my head like wrapped in this, you know, white, like out in my backyard, like growing all the things or whatever. And while I was holding this image in my head, like a coach that I have was like, you should paint that. And I was like, oh, like I can't paint. Like I'm just going through all of these things. And I never used watercolor before, but because I was traveling for this trip, I bought a little travel watercolor case.
Okay, yeah.
And the whole show my work thing was, okay, here's a medium that I've never worked with. Obviously, there's some learning that was happening here. It was a medium that I had never worked with. And I was like, okay, I'm going to absolutely put myself out there. And I painted this while other people were watching.
Yes.
I was like, what? So it's, I mean, there's all the kind of ways it looks like a school art project.
No.
But it was... But it was just like, I mean, for people to look at it and they're like, is that echinacea? I'm like, yes.
Look
you
at
can identify the flower?
Yes.
I'm like, I am here for it.
Yeah.
And then this one in particular was, okay, so this picture is called Emerson in 2073. Okay. So, for my job, part of one of the I want to say like experimental spaces that we're holding is around connecting to storytelling for the purposes of, number one, like, how do we root and ground ourselves in our stories? How do we like fully humanize each other through our stories so that when we're thinking about like what does not work in this world and what do we need to create for all of us to thrive, like we're doing this as whole people, right? Like we're seeing ourselves. And so and from that place of like understanding who we've been, understanding like our history, how do we build a muscle to tell the story of the future that we want to create? And so I've been hosting these practice circles with people who are coming together to learn and to practice storytelling. And so so we meet on Zoom, which is like incredible that this can actually happen in virtual space. And we're telling all different kinds of stories, and it's not a creative writing thing, right? Like, we're not asking people to write stories ahead of time. We're asking people to like connect to inspiration. And like spontaneously, like we're gonna tell these different kinds of stories, and so people don't know what the prompts are from one week to the next. But the arc of this particular story practice was that we started telling stories from the past. And we got to the point where we were creating characters and telling stories that are anywhere from 1 generation to 7 generations out, right? So 20 to 140 years out. And so Emerson, this person is, she's actually my 6-month-old goddaughter. And so I told a story about Emerson when she is becoming an elder, like when she is expecting her first grandchild. And so in this picture, like this is a painting of me envisioning her in the world that she'll be in 2073, which will be 100 years from when I was born. I know. It's wild. It's like, oh my gosh, she'll be 10 years older than I am now, and that will be 100 years after I was born. And so so the story is so what's interesting about telling these stories is like all kind of policies come out because to think about where she is in life is like, so she has graduated from Spelman and she went to Spelman free because the Reparations Act required predominantly white institutions to turn over their endowment funding to historically black institutions. And so she and all descendants of enslaved Africans like attended these institutions for free. But like her major was land and water studies. And so like she was like, so it's like I'm telling the stories, you know, like we're just telling these future stories of like what relationships are like, and like how she was learning from indigenous professors who were, you know, teaching at Spelman to like reconnect to that land, people who had been returned back to Georgia, who had been removed in the Indian Removal Act, like those people are coming back and teaching in the institutions. And it was like that kind of future storytelling that like the story in the moment could get lost. And so we created art. We created art. Like there was like 12 people, and they like everybody thought about.
How did you get that started?
Different characters. This is my work. This is what I do.
Wow, that's awesome.
This is what I do for work. So yeah.
That's really cool.
This is what I do for work. It's fun. It's so fun. And it was so, you know what, to be in a space where, but through art and stories, people who did not know each other created deep connection, were vulnerable, are imagining a future together, and we're telling stories where, like, our characters were playing with each other.
That's
right?
Really cool.
So, like, and literally weeping from joy. I'm like, when do we weep from joy? Yeah. Like, we might laugh a lot, like, laugh really hard and a tear comes down. But, I mean, like, to fully embody, like, joy. And it's so much so, like, the joy comes from the fact that, like, we're imagining this so we can do it. Yeah. Like, we can create it. Yeah. Like, it's possible. Like, if we can sit here and feel this much power in relation to this art that we're making, if we can make it in these stories, if we can make it on these, you know, these visual images that we're creating, then we can actually transform the world. Yeah. Let's be about it.
I love that. I love that. So as we're starting to wrap up anyway, in your mind, what would it look like for you to be successful in your art?
Oh. For me to be successful in my art, I would be creating something every day. The end.
Okay. That's good. No, that's good.
That's it.
I always say that people should decide what success is for themselves. Like what that looks like, what that means. Yeah.
I would be creating every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think if I'm creating every day, I won't have so much attachment to it. And so my art would be able to move out in the world and, like, be in service to whatever it's supposed to be in service to. But in order for that to happen, I've got to be making it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. I think people get caught up on the first part, like, oh no, I have to be great, and like,
no,
you're just sitting.
No, I just have to do it.
Exactly.
I just need to be doing it. I think the greatness will come. Yeah. If I make something every day.
Yeah. Consistency is something I'm working on too. So. Yeah. So do you still dream? Like, do you still have dreams of the future and, like, for yourself?
Yeah. So this is where I think my life feels really integrated. Like, it's a cornerstone to the work I do. Like, my paid work is, like, we have to dream. Yeah. Like, we have to, like, actively dream ourselves and, like, engage other people in dreaming of a future. Yeah. So, all the time. Yeah.
What would you tell an artist who maybe hasn't even created any art yet, or hasn't, like, taken that leap to, like, okay, let me just go out and go buy the materials and see what happens? Like, what would be your advice to them?
So, my advice would be, to go in that art store or in that thrift store. Yeah. Like, you don't even have to be in an art store, right? Yeah. But just go in that place and, like, be still. Take some deep breaths low into your belly and, like, just go to what you're drawn to. Yeah. And don't try to, like, stay out of your head as much as possible. Just go to what you're drawn to. Yeah. And, like, gather those, I would say, 3 to 5 things. 5 is more than a handful, is too much to handle, right? Yeah. Just gather 3 to 5 things and go and make something with it. Yeah. And don't, just do it. Yeah. Just do it. And think about when it's over, like, think about, like, how did you feel when you were doing that? Like, what do you, like, there's so many more questions besides, do you like what you produce? Yeah. There's so many more other questions to, like, how much time went by while you were doing that? Yeah. Like, and what were you feeling in that time, right? And when was the last time you actually felt that for that long, right? Yeah. Like, that's why your art making matters, and go for it. It could be the art store. It could be go to the grocery store. It could be, you know what I mean? Yeah. Go to the music store. Yeah. Go, whatever. Music store can get kind of expensive, but, you know, back to the thrift store. Pick up the recorder recorder. Like, one of the things that's still in my art studio is my recorder from elementary school. Do you know I still play it?
Really?
I do. It's like, I still pick up the little recorder and I'm just like, just make art. Just make music.
Yeah. I like that. And do you have any recommendations for other people, whether it be like a book or like music or whatever? Like, do you have any recommendations for anyone who might be, I guess, wanting to be an artist, who is an artist, who, whatever?
So there are a couple of things that come to mind immediately and that I haven't touched in a really long time. The book The Artist's Way.
Yes, love
I
that
would
book.
Definitely recommend people do that. Take themselves on artist dates, like do morning pages, like do those activities and those practices that are in The Artist's Way. And then the other thing that I found that was really cool, and I didn't do it this year, is there's this online, like, if you can find it on Instagram. It's called the 100-Day Project, and it's an art project. You engage, like, you commit. If you commit to a 100-day project, then you commit to 100 days of creating something every day, taking a picture of it and putting it on Instagram.
Really?
Yes!
That's really cool.
It's so cool because there's like such a huge community of people who are like doing it together and like sharing all that stuff, and you can just go through and like literally some people just draw like a few lines on a sheet of paper and that, like, I did it. I created something today and like, yay, celebrate.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. I'm gonna have to check that out because that actually seems like something I need. I need community or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, so do you have anything that you like to plug or anything for yourself? It's okay if you don't. It's fine.
I don't. It's not like, it's like, I think about podcasts now and I'm just like, people are like, yeah, I put my like, I don't have any art that exists on the internet for anybody to find. For anybody. I don't have any way for people to plug. But what I would say this is like, if people are like, if anything that I shared about like visioning and like storytelling, like to create a future or something like that is of interest to anyone, check out resonance-network.org. And the storytelling practice is up there, the community building, like that's how we center our work. So you can check out my work at Resonance Network. And Resonance. Like sound.
Resonance. Okay,
this is a branding issue, by the way. No, it is. It's a branding issue that every time I say Resonance Network, people think I'm saying residence.
Yeah.
So it's either my pronunciation or we've got a brand challenge. But yeah, like that's a place where we're playing around with it. Yeah. And it's like, for me, it's like, oh, it's not like plug myself as an artist versus like plug my work, because part of the world that I see is where we get to be integrated whole people and we don't have to like compartmentalize ourselves. And so I get to play in this way there too.
Yeah.
So, come play with
that's really good. Yes. So Alexis, thank you so much for doing this. Seriously, this is great. I really want to come back in because there's so many other questions I could ask, but I know I only have like a certain amount of time. But thank you for doing this interview. I love you. I appreciate you.
Thank
you so
much.
I
love you. Yay. Yay, boss.